Seniors, listen up. You've been sold a lie that aging means slowing down, decay, and weakness. That your best days are behind you and the only thing that's ahead is passivity, slowing down, and fading off into the sunset. But that's not biology. That's the script that society's handed you, and it's time to rewrite it. Because what most people think is aging is actually disuse, and what they tell you is inevitable is more optional. You can build muscle into your 60s, 70s, even into your 90s. The science proves it, the stories prove it, and today I'm gonna show you how. So if you've ever wondered, is it too late for me? Stick around, because today the answer could change everything. So what actually happens as we age? Well, around the age of 30, we start to lose muscle mass. And by the age of 80, the average person will have lost a whopping 40% of their muscle. That's almost half of you gone. And around the age of 60, that decline starts to speed up. But here's what most people miss. It's not just aging, it's disuse. And yes, as we age, our hormone levels start to drop. Our motor neurons begin to work less efficiently. And yes, our muscles do indeed become more resistant to strength training and protein. But resistant doesn't mean unresponsive. It just means you need a bigger spark. Think of your muscles like a campfire. When you're young, all you need is a small spark and you can light a big roaring fire. As you get older, eventually you're gonna need a full-blown blowtorch to get that fire going. A few years back, I was backpacking with my kids in the wilderness and we'd gone on a day hike together. And we caught some fish, lucky us. And my kids said, "Dad, we want to cook the fish." And so I scrummaged through my bag and could not find a lighter. I'd left all my lighters back at camp. All I had was this little knife with a piece of flint. And I was determined that I was going to give my kids their first experience of, cooking and eating fish by the lake. Total dad moment. So there I am. I found a rock and I'm scraping the rock against the top of the flint, getting these little tiny sparks into, my fire starter area. And after about an hour, I finally got a little bit of smoke and there I am blowing on it and I got it to light. Full-blown fire. There's a picture of it right here, proof, evidence of what I did. And man, was that hard work. Turns out my kids liked the catching and the cooking of the fish more than the eating, but mission accomplished nonetheless. And as we get older, that's kind of what happens to our bodies. We need more effort and more of a spark to get the flame of muscle building going. But that certainly doesn't mean it's impossible. You just need to be more intentional about it as you age. And that brings me to this graph. This is a graph of muscle strength and size over time. As you can see, the lines both go up as you get closer to about age 25 or 30. That's because people gain muscle throughout their youth and adolescent years until about 25 or 30, and then they start to lose muscle. But the rate at which you lose muscle varies highly dependent upon whether or not you're strength training. And you can see that as you get older, the gap between these two lines actually starts to widen. And so the orange line, that person will hit their disability threshold right around the age of 60, 70, maybe 75. And that's the point where you're unable to do the things that are important to you. So your disability threshold is going to be different than the next person. But you'll see this person on the green line, they never hit the disability threshold, meaning strength is never their limiting factor. They're always able to do the things they want to do right up until the very end of their life. And that's what we all want, right? We want to be able to do what we want to do on our terms for the duration of our lifespan. And strength training is the delta between these two. Now, if you're not training right now, it's certainly not too late for you. You can still make the jump from orange to green at just about any age. You can make the jump from I can't to I can. You can make the jump from decline to strength. And we're going to show you how in this video today. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, oh man, if only I'd started later, or I'm too far gone. But let me show you why your thinking, thankfully, is totally flawed. And to understand, we're going to take a trip back to the year 1990. Dr. Maria Fiorone ran a study that flipped the entire conversation around strength and aging on its head. Now, to run her study, she didn't pick fit 60-year-olds. She didn't pick college-aged male gym rats. No, she went into the nursing homes and found the frailest of frail, average age of 90-year-olds, and brought them in for a strength training study. Many were incredibly frail. Many couldn't walk on their own. Some even had to use a wheelchair to get into the study. Dr. Fiatarone didn't accept the narrative that they were too old to change. She put them on a real strength training program using heavy resistance. And they followed that program for 8 weeks. And the results were incredible. Not only did the participants increase their muscle size in just 8 weeks, but they saw an average of 113% increase in muscle strength. What was even cooler was that people that had a hard time walking improved their ability to walk. One man who hadn't gotten up unassisted in years got up out of his wheelchair and walked unassisted, not because of some miracle drug or some injection or surgery, but because of strength training. It's that powerful. Incredible things were happening, and only one thing had changed. These folks had started strength training. So if you're thinking it's too late for you, take a look at this study and think again. And this study wasn't a fluke. There's a mountain of research to back this up. Now, you might be thinking, Dr. Matt, that's great that that plays out in research studies, but where does the rubber actually meet the road in real life? Well, to help illustrate that, I want to introduce you to Jim Arrington. Jim is the oldest professional bodybuilder in the world. Jim was born over a month and a half premature, and in the 1930s, that was basically a death sentence. Growing up, he was skinny, frail, and sickly. Jim hated being small. So at the age of 15, he picked up a set of weights and started bodybuilding. He wasn't the most gifted, he wasn't the biggest or the strongest, but he certainly was incredibly consistent over the years. When others stopped, Jim kept going. Through aging, through injuries, and he just never stopped. And in 2015, at the young age of 83, Jim was recognized as the oldest professional competitive bodybuilder in the world. And even into his 90s, he still lifts 3 days a week for a couple hours. He says that the key is simple: consistency, passion, and not treating aging like a death sentence. You see, Jim didn't just preserve muscle, he built it. He didn't just avoid frailty, he conquered it. And if Jim can do it in his 80s and even his 90s, what could you do starting today? So how do you actually build muscle and strength after the age of 60? The goal is certainly not to mimic a 25-year-old's training plan. Your goal should be to follow a program that's designed for someone your age and in your stage. You're not fragile, but you are different than the 20-something. Your training needs to respect biology. You may have lost some muscle mass, some power, even some joint mobility, and you may have acquired a few injuries and limitations along the way. And I would go as far as to say, that's not a problem, that's just your starting point in this whole thing. The best strength training exercises for seniors accomplish 2 things. Number 1, they use the most amount of muscle possible. The more muscle you use at one time, the more of a strength and muscle protein synthesis stimulus you're gonna get in your body, which is what you want. And number 2, they're functional, meaning they are as similar to real life movements as possible. I've never seen someone do a leg extension or a leg curl in real life. But boy, have I seen people do a squat or pick something up off the ground or lift something up overhead. So the exercises that are the best, the most ideal for seniors who want to build strength as they age are full body movements like the squat, the deadlift, and the overhead press. And that's why when we build this little training plan that we're going to in just a second, we're gonna focus it around these key full body barbell-based movements because they're gonna give you the most bang for your buck and the biggest strength training stimulus possible. So if I was working with someone brand new and counseling them on how to get started with a program like this, I'd build them a workout A and a workout B. Now, workout A and B are gonna look very similar. They're gonna start both with a squat for 3 sets of 5 reps, and then they're gonna move into either an overhead press or a horizontal press, like a bench press for 3 sets of 5 reps. And they're both gonna finish with a deadlift for 2 to 3 sets of 5 reps. So we're gonna go into those 4 different exercises. I'm gonna start at a variation or a level that would be appropriate for anyone that I've worked with, and then we'll show you how to progress that to something very advanced. Now, when you're just getting started with a program like this, you really don't need an extensive warm-up before you begin. So for example, if you're doing bodyweight squats or overhead pressing with 5-pound dumbbells, you can probably just jump right into it. Maybe you warm up on the treadmill with a 5-minute walk, and then you get into your workout. However, the more you advance in weight for your target sets, which are the sets where you're pushing yourself, the actual 3 sets of 5, the more you're gonna need a warm-up. And the older you are, the more you're gonna need a warm-up. The colder it is outside, the more you're gonna need a warm-up before you get into the workout. So if you're deadlifting 200 pounds and you're 75 years old, boy, you better warm up for a good while before then. And not only do you need to get physically warm by walking on the treadmill or riding a bike, but you also need to warm up on that specific movement. We follow a really cool formula that we came up with called the 5-4-3-2-1 method for warming up properly. You're gonna start with 5 reps at 50 to 60% of your target weight. So 200 pounds, that's 100 to 120 pounds for a set of 5. Then you're gonna do 4 reps at 60 to 70%, 3 reps at 70 to 80%, 2 reps at 80 to 90%, and finally a single rep at 90 to 100% of that target weight. So 180 to 200 pounds, a single rep is gonna prep your nervous system and your body for the workout ahead. Then, after you've completed each of these workouts, when you come back to them, try to add a small amount of weight. If you're just starting out, you may be able to add 10 pounds every time you work out on your deadlifts, 5 pounds on squats, and 2.5 pounds on overhead press or bench press. And just keep going, keep adding weight. That's called progressive overload. Eventually you hit a point where you plateau, and then you'll have to start adding less, and the complexities of what to do next are beyond the scope of this video. But that's the basics of strength training. We made a video on this on the topic of progressive overload that covers how to progress appropriately and safely for seniors. What about nutrition? Now, muscle loss and muscle gain with aging can be solved with 2 things: strength training and appropriate nutrition. When it comes to nutrition, protein is king. Now, we went deep on how to reverse muscle loss in this video right here, but I'm gonna give you the brief overview right now. In the Health, Aging, and Body Composition study, seniors who ate the most protein, averaging about 100 grams per day, lost 40% less muscle than those eating the least protein, averaging about 57 grams per day. The RDA for protein is shockingly low. It's 0.36 grams per pound of body weight. If you're a 150-pound person, that's 54 grams of protein. That's even lower than the low group in the study that I just quoted to you. And 40% of US adults don't even get the RDA for protein. So we are completely under proteined as a society today. I would recommend getting at least 100 grams of protein spread evenly across 3 meals per day. So 30 grams of protein at breakfast, at lunch, and at dinner. Choose animal sources like eggs, beef, poultry, and whey, because these are rich in leucine, which appears to be something like a key that unlocks muscle protein synthesis within the human body, specifically for seniors. My final charge to you is this: muscle isn't just for bodybuilders, it's your retirement plan. It's a thing that's gonna prevent falls, that's gonna improve your mobility, it's gonna allow you to get up and down off the ground so that you can play with your grandkids, so that you can travel and do things on your own terms as you go through life. And yes, you can build muscle after the age of 50, 60, 70, even after the age of 90. Jim Arrington did it. The folks in Maria Fiatarone's study did it. Our clients have been doing it for a decade, and you can do it too. So it's not too late. It's time. I'm Dr. Matt. We'll see you next time. Like and subscribe for more content just like this.